Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast,
a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Aniston, and this is Empowered Life. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. I'm your host, Rudi Riekstins, and I'm excited for another incredible episode where we bring you unbelievable people who have achieved profound things in life and bring meaning to every single moment, because everything that we're doing is preparing us for the person that we get to become. You hear that every single time we talk about the empowered life, because your life is about you tapping into the divinity and the brilliance that is you, bringing it out. And once you've done it, you have an awareness you can turn around and teach and bring into the world. Today, we have an incredible guest, and I'm excited to introduce you to Bryce Henson. Bryce Henson is an unbelievable superstar in his own right. And you're going to learn a little bit about what does it look like to tackle life and then to pivot again and to pivot again to create the life that he is living today. And I'm really excited to bring him and welcome him into the Empowered Life Podcast. Bryce, thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Rudy, thanks so much for having me. This has been fantastic already.
Oh man, I'm really excited to hit record. So I love to give our audience a little bit of backstory. And so we actually are in Dallas, Texas right now. We recorded your show a few moments ago, and now we've turned the cameras back in on you, which is my favorite part. And I get to interview you and dive into a little bit about who you are and how you're showing up. And so just having the opportunity to have you talk to me today and interview me and the thoughtfulness and the questions that you asked, I'm going to encourage everybody to hop over to your podcast and to catch the episode and to learn a little bit more about you, how you show up, the intentionality of what you do, the energy that you bring into just the interviews and the questions and things that you're asking just speaks into the success that you've been able to achieve. Now, we always talk about people that have achieved a level of greatness, that have some level of success, but it wasn't always that way. And I love to ask that question. I love to phrase it that way, because I love to demonstrate to people that no matter where you are in life, you can still get to somewhere. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your story. And I've very intentionally not told everybody yet what you do and how successful you are and what it is that you've created, because I first want to give everybody a little bit of a look behind the curtain as to what was your life, where did it come from? I know that you grew up in a home with a father that was an alcoholic. I know that he had addiction problems, and growing up in a very difficult environment, it taught you and demonstrated certain life skills to you today. But you don't live or have any of those practices or principles. And so I would love to know if you could share with us a little bit about what was your childhood like? What was it like growing up in that environment? But more than anything, how did that prepare you for the man that you are today and the person that you get to become?
Oh man, well, thank you. I appreciate that question. And it's interesting hearing your story. We have different but very similar backgrounds as well, growing up on the other side of the world from each other. But the first 20 years of my life, I had two chapters. The first 10 years would be chapter number 1. The second 10 years, chapter number 2. My first 10 years were volatile, I would say, for sure. And it wasn't because my mother, amazing salt of the earth lady from the Midwest, she married my father, who, to your point, was a drug addict, addicted to gambling and alcohol, and not the trifecta typically for a good family upbringing. So it's interesting, though, a lot of times he was absent, growing up, and still absent to this day. I hadn't seen him for 30 years. And if anything, though, it's a blessing disguised as a tragedy more than anything, because I believe that life happens for you. And because of the, experiences that I went through, and like many of your audience as well, I've gotten better from them. So my leadership philosophy is adversity is your advantage. So I want to start there. But first 10 years, Dad was definitely absent. But when he came home, it was a wild card, depending on the state of where he was at, depending on how much money he lost, depending on whether he was under the influence of alcohol. And as my childhood kind of continued on, things just got a little bit more dramatically intense, if you will, and the verbal arguments got violent. And thankfully, by the grace of God, we escaped that situation. My mom got us out of that challenging time. And then the new chapter started, and we ended up living in Michigan, where my mom was from, and a very humble 3-bedroom, second party trailer park, if you will. And it was challenging to say the least. However, the good news is we were in a safe environment, if you will. But my mom, bless her heart, had no visibility, no vision that she was going to be supporting 3 kids and having to be both a mom and dad. So thankfully, by the grace of God, my grandma took us in. My grandma had lived in her room. My brother and I lived in one room, and then my mom and my sister shared a room and a bed, actually, for the better part of 10 years, while my mom was able to kind of get us on her feet. And in the grand scheme of things, always had a roof over our head and food on the table. So, as I started to travel the world and see other things, I realized how grateful ultimately we had it for sure. However, the stress and the anxiety was probably the one thing that lived with me for a long period of time. And, sensing and feeling my mom's anxiety and worry and, trying to be the best that she could be, trying to be the mom, the provider, the father, and raise her 3 kids. I learned grit. I learned, the value of work ethic. I learned the value of family and relationships. So these were pivotal things in my first 2 decades that I learned in very different chapters, if you will, but that really carried with me to this day. So that was really the foundation that catapulted me, put myself through school. I used to donate blood plasma just to, make ends meet. But then when I was 21, ended up graduating from college and moved out west, which was the 3rd chapter, and I guess started my professional career. And I'll probably end there, and we can continue dialogue.
I was interested to see if you were going to touch on relationships at all, because I have such a unique vantage point coming into your life, not having had any of the back history and only meeting you today. Mm-hmm. Now, for the benefit of our audience, we've had a lot of emails back and forth. We've had some texts back and forth. And so we already knew we would like each other. We obviously follow each other. We've seen socially what we do. But when I got to the hotel today, Bryce was standing downstairs in the lobby waiting for me with his team. And, I could have been another 10 minutes, another 20 minutes. They didn't know. And I didn't expect them to be sitting in the lobby. And he said, I'll come down. And I just imagined I would text you when I got to the hotel. And you were already standing there and you were waiting. And there was a massive bear hug, and it was a hello and a how are you? And then there was another hug, and then it was a question about the day and what am I doing? And you are a relationship builder, and you value and you appreciate people. And that when somebody's in front of you, you really spend time with that person. And what's so amazing is it wasn't just you, it's everyone that's around you seems to mirror the same way. And so you're leading by example of, hey, this is how I'm showing up, and other people are starting to emulate the way that you show up, which is truly the definition of leadership. And you spend a lot of time talking about leadership. Your podcast is about leadership. Mm-hmm. You value and appreciate leadership. And in addition to that, now let's get to your success. You're the CEO of FitBody BootCamp, and this is the fastest growing indoor fitness chain. You opened up 300 locations. You have 300 franchises across North America, from US into Canada. I read somewhere you opened up 87 locations in 12 months in 23. Is that correct?
58, actually, 23.
58. And I mean, that number is just insanely big. And you think about the growth and the trajectory of this company, which is going to require a tremendous amount of leadership and leadership skills, because not only do you have to hold the vision of the business, but for every individual franchisee. And that is massive. So I want to go back to a little bit, because at one point in time, you have, admittedly said that you were allergic to being in a gym, and that you were allergic to lifting weights. Yes. And clearly you're not allergic to lifting weights anymore. And so not only do you now support other people in creating that, I want you to speak into what was the moment, because there had to be one. There had to have been a defining moment where all of a sudden something happened in your life where you said, I'm not a guy that works out, I'm not in a gym. And then all of a sudden, I am a guy that is in a gym. And then there's another shift that says, and now I want to teach it. So let's go to the first one. What was that one moment that really was the catalyst for the change?
Oh, love that question. Thank you for the accolades. Feeling is mutual, just the energy, the intentionality, just absolutely love our new relationship to start there. But when I graduated from school, from Michigan State, I ended up getting an internship, which then turned into a full-time job in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles, California, the palm trees, the blue skies, the beaches, all that LA has to offer. But something it'll tell you, when you're 21 years young, when you're 3,000 miles from home, you have very little professional skills to offer the world. You don't have confidence. I didn't have fitness in my life. The source of energy, enthusiasm, and confidence that I do now, I had more dark days than good. And that was my landing spot in Los Angeles for the first couple of years. And kind of leading up into that aha moment, if you will. About 2 years into my stay in California, a fortuitous situation happened. And one of my dear friends, his name's Adam to this day, moved out west. And a little bit about Adam, we went to college together. And he had the six-pack abs, the glistening muscles. All the girls loved him. I certainly looked up to that. And we ended up living together for 2 years. And very informative and transformational, I guess is the word I was looking for, 2 years. And after living with him for a couple months, I finally mustered up enough courage to say, Adam, can you teach me a little bit about this fitness thing? And he turns to me and he's like, Bryce, I thought you'd never ask. However, if we're going to do this, I want you to commit to me. For the next 12 weeks, you're going to do what I ask you to do. You're going to lift the weights I want you to lift. You're going to eat what I want you to eat. And after the 12 weeks, if it's not for you, all good. But I don't want to waste your time or my time. And I said, hey, that sounds like a good plan. And from a leadership perspective, I learned commitment and consistency. Gaining commitment, is a very successful strategy in terms of leading yourself and also leading others. And I embarked on that quote unquote 12-week journey, which is about 17 years in running at this point. This is in early 2007. And what Adam did, he introduced me to lifting weights, he introduced me to circuit training, he introduced me to clean nutrition, but most importantly, coaching and accountability. And this is, you're an expert coach. This is why I love the coaching business, because you really get to lead and guide and shape people. And Adam did that for me. And yes, in terms of the fitness results, I mean, we were talking about this on my podcast. There's a period of time where all of a sudden you start to see that transformation, that change, and that actually creates more intentionality, more growth, more, I guess, ambition to continue on that path. But for the first 6 months, I dropped 20 pounds of body fat. I put 20 pounds of lean muscle. But way more important than that, Rudi, it changed my life. I had more energy, confidence. I just showed up differently. And one thing that changed was fitness. And in fact, for my sales career at the time, I went from the least performing sales rep in the company all the way to the highest performing sales rep in the company within 12 months. Through that journey, it wasn't the follow-up, it wasn't the sales script, it was literally just the way I showed up, the confidence. And for me, I just knew that this was something that I wanted to pursue. Although at that period of time, I didn't think that I was going to pursue it professionally. I just thought it was a tool to, develop me as a person, to, have more energy, have more clarity, show up better for myself, for my family, for my team. That was what I saw. But it wasn't until about 2 years into this journey that I ended up going to the gym one day, and some guy walks up to me and he introduced himself to me, and he shared with me he'd been watching how I lift weights, and he was curious on how I ate and was looking for some nutrition coaching. And really, up until that point, to your point about teaching, I never thought that I could actually teach this. This is just me going through the journey. And I walked away from that conversation with this big aha. What if I could give this gift of fitness back to other people? Now, I didn't even think at the time I could make it a full-time profession, but I thought maybe I could train some clients on the nights and weekends, make a few extra bucks, and really do something that would be meaningful and impactful, just like Adam shared with me. So I did the most logical thing I possibly could do as the next step, and I enrolled myself in the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which is the gold standard certified personal training. And I went through that coursework. It took me 3 to 6 months to complete, and I did. And once I did, I updated my Facebook profile, a personal or certified personal trainer, and we're talking offline. A gentleman named Bedros Keuilian, who's the founder of FitBody BootCamp, started serving me ads on how to launch a business, how to get clients, how to get better clients into shape. And that was really what started me on the journey about learning about FitBody. We can talk about that, but going back to your initial question, putting a bow on it, that was the experience of me going through my own transformation first and foremost, having that impact, that touching experience with coaching, with accountability, and then having the identity change a couple of years into that journey, and this aha kind of lifted, and that was really the source of inspiration, how I got fit, how I went through my transformation, and then I decided to teach it.
So I said in the very beginning of the episode that we were going to exploit, for a better word, right? We're going to exploit your transformations as you have pivoted so many times in your life. And I use this as an example because when I looked into your story as we were preparing to meet, I was really struck by how you have grown with your time. And so many people have a dream or a goal to do something, and then they think that's the way that they're going to be, or this is what their life is going to look like. And then when they want to create a shift or they want to create a change, they're really stuck because, well, I've always wanted to do that, or I always wanted to be this. And when I looked at your life, you just so beautifully have transformed like the butterfly. And I love the analogy of the butterfly because it's constantly in the state of transformation. And so your life did that. And in case anybody missed it, there were 2 transformations in that. The first was, I don't work out. I'm allergic to the gym. The actual words you used were, I'm allergic to lifting weight. And so clearly you're not. And so there was this transformation of identity of, what, I can't, and now I can, and then I am.
Yes.
And you went into from can't, can, am. And then you shifted again from now I have a skill, which is the meaning of life, and I learned something and I get to turn around and teach it. And then you have this moment where you're so empowered because you shared it and you taught it and it gave you purpose and meaning. And then you pivoted again because not only were you now certified trainer, not only did you start picking up some clients, you then actually went in and got your own gym and you went and purchased a franchise with Bedros. And so you became a franchise owner. And so my question to you is, what was the emotional shift that was required to go from being essentially just a guy in a gym, a solopreneur wanting to do this, possibly having a day job during the day, to I'm going to make this my full-time job. Not only am I going to invest in other people, but I'm actually going to invest in myself and say, I'm going to put some skin in the game and I'm going to buy a gym. I'm going to do a franchise, and this is on me now. And what was that mental shift that was required for you to step from being somebody who didn't have the obligation of the building and the rents and the employees to all of a sudden, I believe in me enough in the transformation I've had that I can give this to people on a maximum scale? What was that to open up your first gym? What did that take?
Oh, I love that. And there's even another transformation story that I'll talk with you on top of that. But I think transformation's painful. It's challenging. I mean, we know this to be true. Growth is actually challenging. So for me, going through that experience, one, from the physical perspective, it was challenging. The first 12 weeks, I could barely, walk up the stairs. My legs were so sore about, sitting down, going to the bathroom. But that's just part of the process. Anytime you step into uncharted territory, you're going to feel discomfort and you're going to feel, I guess, the challenge of growth. But you need to push through, and that's what gets you better. So that was the physical transformation. But then, deciding to launch my own brick and mortar franchise business underneath the tutelage of FitBody BootCamp in Bedros, I just looked at myself and my life, and I always knew I wanted to be successful from a financial perspective, from just a general, being a breadwinner, being a sounding rock for my family. But I didn't only want to focus on the money. If I thought that, I would probably went to high finance, commercial real estate, something else. I wanted to have something that I could look back, Rudi, and think to myself, you know what, I'm proud of this. I poured into people. This was meaningful work. And, I looked at my experience over the last, 5 years, because at that point, I went through my physical transformation in 2007. I launched my first location in 2012. So there's a period of 5 years. In fact, in that period of time, I ended up moving to South America, checking another box because I wanted to transform myself. I always had this, this affinity to move to a different country, learn a different language, which I have so much respect for you, and that immigrant edge mentality, which you've been able to migrate here. So going throughout that transformation was a whole other transformation in its own right. But when I came back to California, right as approaching 2012, I thought to myself, I'm at a crossroads, and yes, I want to be financially successful, but there has to be more. There has to be some sort of purpose and guiding principle that's going to make me fulfilled. And I think that's really what I was looking for, Rudi. I was looking for fulfillment. And I knew that I got so much fulfillment when I went through my own physical transformation. Logic would just tell me that if I'm able to provide a platform to do that for other people, holy smokes, that is just combining both of my passions. And, I didn't shotgun the decision. It was research and diligence. I probably researched Bedros on his list for 2 years, but then hyper-focused for about 6 months when I knew this was what I'm about to do. And I look back on my life at that particular decision, I thought to myself, I'm at a fork in the road. I can kind of dabble and wonder what if this fitness thing could have went somewhere, or I could think to myself, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to give this my best shot. I'm going to invest my life savings. And that's what I decided to do. And I'm glad I did that, because very similar to the experience when I was doing my fitness transformation, the first 12 weeks were hard. They were painful. They were challenging. Anytime you go through transformation, the butterfly going through the cocoon, that's painful. That's a challenging situation. But you have to put your, feet to the fire in order to do that. And I did that with the fitness. And then ultimately I did that with my business, my fitness business. And that's really what gave me the courage to take that leap of faith. And the first 12 months were not fun. They were challenging. I joked to my team. I pinched a tent in the corner. I was the bookkeeper. I was the janitor. I was the coach. I was the sales guy. And if you're listening to this and watching this from an entrepreneurial framework, you can certainly resonate with me in many different ways. But that was the experience that I needed. But the second transformation, Rudi, that I want to finish on was actually the transformation of leadership. And this is why I was so excited to connect with you, you being a very strong leader and leadership expert, leadership coach. Because what I realized in the first year, it probably took me about 18 months, if I'm being very candid, of launching my first location. I knew that I was on fire with fitness. I knew that I could help people impact their fitness, impact their mindset, impact their life. But I didn't know from a business perspective if I could, execute everything. I was successful as a coach. I was successful as a sales guy, because that was my previous, career. But I didn't know how to run operations. I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to run HR, all the things that you need to do from a business perspective versus just being an independent contractor, as an example. So that was the reason I decided to get the support of the franchise. So I jump in and I was the head coach for the first 6 months, training all the sessions. My wife was there to support me. It was, amazing experience. But then when the business started to grow, then I realized okay, I need to replicate myself. I need to bring on other teammates, other coaches. So I did. So I ended up, following the playbook and brought on the coaches. And what I realized, Rudi, in the first 3 months or so, my coaches, awesome people, okay, actually it turns out wasn't their fault at all, but they weren't executing to what my vision was of coaching. I could get out there, I can connect, I could bring energy on the mic, I could build relationships. But when I asked my team to do the same thing, there was something missing. And our growth started to hit, stagnant. And then I got overwhelmed. I'm like, man, now I got to jump back in coaching, and then I got to do the HR, then I got to do the finance, then I got to do the payroll. There's so many skill sets. Until it dawned on me after going through a leadership seminar. Actually, we're here in Dallas. I read a book called The Energy Bus by John Gordon, leadership expert. Going to share the stage with you tomorrow, and talking about intentionality, talking about leadership, how to lead, and the value of leadership. And the light bulb went off to me, Rudi, that I don't have to be good at everything in the business. That's impossible. But what I need to do is become a recruit subject matter experts, people that are good at HR, that are good at finance, that are good at accounting, that are good at bookkeeping, that are good at coaching, that are better than me at all these areas and disciplines. And if I could just learn how to lead, okay, that would be the missing link to be able to create this beautiful symphony of a fitness business where I could serve my community, get people in shape. So it was about 18 months into that journey of not only my fitness journey, but my business journey, when I realized that leadership was the missing link to put everything together.
So the reason I asked this question was because I'm building a cake. I'm layering it for our audience. You first started with a single franchise, and then eventually you grew to having 5 franchises and being the most successful franchisee. And I want people to understand that there's growth in putting stake in the sand, saying, you know what, I think I'm going to invest in me, and I'm going to start this franchise, and I'm going to put it all on the line, and I'm going to risk whatever I can, not just the money, but to the effort to put this work in to see if I can make this work. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage for somebody to be able to do. And then you did it. And then you made it successful. And even though it took you 18 months, as you said, it was up and it was down and it was bumpy, but you learned and you grew. Mm-hmm. And then you got to a place where you were good, you were comfortable. And then there's another evolution of you to go to 2, and then from 2 to 3, and from 3 to 4, and eventually 4 to 5. And then there were more evolutions after that, because we all now know you're the CEO of the entire organization. You've grown the entire business to 300. And so I would love for you to speak into what were the things that you had to do, like the internal dialogue, the discussion that you had to have with yourself that said, you know what, I have 1, but I want more, or I want to create that shift to have more. What was the conversation that you had to have with yourself to grow from 1 to 5? Because so many people get stuck there. They have the 1, but they're scared to risk the 1 for the 2. And what if the 2 is going to, fail if we get to the 3? And you seem to be able to beautifully navigate that. So before we get to the growth in the franchise side of the business, what did it take from a leadership perspective, self-discipline, self-leadership, self-talk, to move from 1 to 5?
Oh, man. Incredible question. And it just comes down to self-improvement, self-mastery. And what I realized about owning a business, which I love owning businesses, and specifically fitness businesses, because I believe it is the biggest self-mastery, self-growth, and self-development program in the world. Because when you launch a location or multiple locations, there's no pointing fingers. When things don't work out, you can't say this person or that person. You need to have a mirror, and that mirror showcases your weaknesses. And I feel like actually that's what owning a business, and in my case, launching many locations, it did for me. It shined a light on the areas that I did well, but also shined a light on the areas that I needed to pick up the slack, or to better my leadership, or to find another better person in that particular zone of genius. So for me, it's just been an incredible growth journey. And that was probably the biggest missing link in order for me to launch the second location and third location. But going back to the point, it's leadership. What I really understood at that period of time, I need to lead myself first and foremost. And actually, if you look at my evolution of leading myself in all these individual changes is probably the thing that's front and center. It's like, where can I tighten up? Where can I make one adjustment to get me better? Can I wake up a little bit earlier? Can I develop my communication skills? Can I get on camera more because now I need to replicate my message? Or all these little skills that you need to, continue to develop. Forget about the franchise side of things, but just you as a person launching one location to multiple locations because, it sounds so basic, but you can't be at two places at one time. So if that's the case, how can you replicate yourself? How can you cache vision? How can I, be a better communicator? How can I be able to give feedback better? I mean, these are all necessary things in my journey that I had to learn. But to put a bow on it, Rudi, while I'm not risk averse. I definitely am, I have a healthy tolerance for risk. I also don't jump into anything without the proper research and preparation. So for me, it was an educated decision in terms of all these particular, growth patterns. So, while I needed to focus on me, my self-development, my self-mastery, continue to better my leadership skills, again, going back, that's the fulcrum, that's the pinnacle for me. And that's why I love leadership, because when you can lead yourself and when you can lead an organization, you can get a team of people, which I absolutely love. I love leadership because I love people. I love building relationships. I love creating teams targeted towards a common vision. It's kind of like that, analogy of the microscope, and you have the sun coming down, the magnifying glass. But when you have without the magnifying glass, the sun comes down. But when you put a magnifying glass on something and the sun comes down, you can actually burn a hole because all that energy is so focused in. I think that's the value of leading teams and building companies. So that's the work that I had to do. And it was calculated, it was well researched, but it was grounded in my need to grow, to self-improve as a leader. And then ultimately I looked back and I thought to myself, if I don't launch these locations, I'm being selfish, because this is something that you shared in your podcast. Your life's not about you. It's about the impact that has on other. And that was one of the defining moments to myself. If I stop this growth journey, if I stop self-improving, how many people are sleeping, going to sleep at night crying because they don't have a community, they don't have support and coaching, because I failed to execute my growth. I failed to execute to put myself in a position to serve my community and serve myself and my team at a higher level. So that was the kind of the pinnacle that really made me make those decisions to scale upwards of 5 locations.
Anyone that's watching the podcast on YouTube can see that I was smiling when you were answering that last section of the question, because that's where I was leading you. I was hoping to hear that your journey was grounded in something that's significantly bigger than you, because what I want the audience to walk away from is most people, if they are self-serving, meaning they're doing something for themselves, they want to have a business, they want to have a life, they want to have a bank account, they want to have stability, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But they're only going to have that if they're making it about themselves and having their own stability and their own bank account. But when you have a purpose and that purpose bleeds out and it's bigger than you, then you make bigger choices, bolder decisions, because now you've got this thing that's flowing to you and through you. And my initial question, which was about your friend, then all of a sudden became the catalyst to create the change. And if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have had this moment. If you didn't have this moment, you wouldn't feel what it felt like to go from, man, I can't do, to I can do, to I am, and then to want to be able to lead that and inspire that. What I love about your journey so much is that you started as somebody who didn't believe you could, and then you did, and then you grew it to 5. And then Bedros comes along and says, man, I'd really like you to come in and support our franchisees because you're the best at it. And he offers you a job. And you've just done everything to create structure and stability in your life so that you don't have to have a job. And I know that entrepreneurs, we work harder than anybody. I'm not saying that it's not a job, but it doesn't feel like a job because it's your business, it's your purpose, it's your passion.
Right.
But now you give up your job, your business, to take someone else's job and to buy into somebody else's vision, because that was Bedros's vision. And then at some point in time, you had to take ownership of Bedros's vision and make it your own. And you wouldn't have made the business as successful as it is right now, currently just fastest growing, incredible, 300 locations. You wouldn't be able to do that if at some point in time that vision didn't become your vision. Mm-hmm. So I'd love for you to share with us, if you could articulate it, because I think this is an internal feeling really of what did it take to go from I had a vision to create stability, because I know you wanted to have 10 franchises and you built 5 and you were halfway there and you were stuck in success and you're like, I am halfway to achieving what I want. And then somebody else says, no, I actually want you to come work for me. And then to be able to make that pivot and give up on your dream for a dream that's bigger than the dream that you had.
Oh, Rudi, man, you were with me in spirit during this period of time in 2018 when Bedros reached out and had these conversations. In fact, he likes to joke. He's an incredible visionary, incredible storyteller. When he gets on stage, he'll say, and Bryce turned me down for 6, 12, 18 months. That's not true. We had probably about maybe 3 or 4 conversations over a 3-year period. But when he asked me, and this is a story I usually don't share, but when he asked me to be his VP, I didn't tell him no, but I didn't say yes. I had my vision. I was actually halfway towards my vision, to your point. So I'm a hard-charging entrepreneur. I had this vision out. And to your point earlier, and you framed it beautifully, I think I was empty, what I realized. And with launching and serving, that's where I get my sense of fulfillment. That's actually where the sense of purpose comes from. And it was the same dialogue in this particular situation in 2018 when I made the decision to shift away from my vision of growth and to buy into Bedros's vision for that particular opportunity. And Rudi, what the defining moment was, because I was weighing that. I was like, okay, I'm going to give up this freedom, okay, the autonomy of what I'm doing in my vision for a bigger vision, but a different vision. And as I was weighing this, and it took me about 3 or 4 months to make that decision, what I realized was it actually just had to come, it came down to impact. And I thought to myself, well, why did I get in this business to begin with? I got in this business to help other people. Because if I just wanted to make money, I would have done something else, okay? I got in this business to help other people, selfishly to create more fulfillment, because it fills me up when I'm helping others and serving others. That I feel like selfish in some ways because I get the most, which is incredible. But I thought to myself, if this is the real reason I'm getting in this business, well, it only makes sense to take a piece of humble pie, swallow my pride and ego, make a right turn, and realize that I have access to a bigger platform. There might be some adjustments along the way that I have to get used to, but in the grand scheme of things, I actually can help more people in the process. I can create more fulfillment. And the last thing, Rudi, is I thought I could grow more. And I thought that particular platform would be more of a pressure cooker where I learned how to lead, I learned how to grow, I learned to be a better version of myself so I could show up better for the world. So these are the defining decisions. And I've never been asked that question, Rudi. I am so impressed. I've never been asked that question with the thousands of countless amount of franchise partners and coaches. So I really appreciate that.
You know, I love to take somebody's life and then take the life lesson out of the life so that somebody else can learn from that so they can make a decision that's similar and apply what was somebody else's experience to their life. And here's what I really want everybody, and that's why I use the word exploit. And I saw your face when I used the word, because it's one of those words where you're like, whoa, is that what he said? Is that what he meant?
Yeah.
Because I really want to exploit what you've done because it's so beautiful. And if somebody were to look at it, you know, I was going to have a follow-up question I'm going to ask and answer at the same time. I'd love your response to it, but what was more difficult, starting the first franchise or growing 300? And it's always, in my opinion, the first, because that's where you're investing in you and the growth. And then you were able to do that successfully within 5, but your mission was greater than you. And so you eventually grew to 300. And, you know, I just think that that is such a beautiful thing that people can walk away from because it's about the mission.
Yes.
I believe life is about giving selflessly of yourself every day in every single way, pouring into everybody and doing everything you can to impact every single room better than you found it. And you wouldn't be living that if you said, I'm going to grow to 5, I'm going to grow to 10, I'm going to have a really good income, my wife and I are going to go really good vacations, we're going to have kids, and we're going to send them to Ivy League schools, and life's going to be good. And that would be a good life. And you would feel good about your life.
Yeah.
But man, you get to feel great about your life. And when I walked into the hotel room, you are a man that feels great. Like you look and thrive in every fiber of your being, and it's because you're doing what you're meant to be doing. And so was it harder to do 1 or was it harder to build 300?
In a weird way, I would actually say they were both as hard, but it sounds crazy. And I know you just gave your answer. It sounds crazy to say that building the first is equally as difficult as building as a 300. And granted, Bedros laid the vision. I've had a lot of, I have an amazing team there. I just feel so grateful. This is not me, Bryce Henson, building. It's on the back of my freaking team, which I love and adore. But there is a lot of truth in the sense that it was equally as hard, I would say, building that first one because the problems and the challenges were different than scaling to 300. But it's probably like a little kid, you have children, right? I think 8 and 9, right? Mm-hmm. When, they were born, it was probably, and as they were growing up, it was probably really hard for them to ride their bike or tie their shoe at first, right? But then they, get that skill and they can solve bigger level problems. And I feel like it's probably the same for me. Like when I got in that first location, it was very, very challenging, but I didn't have the skill set for it. I didn't know how to lead. I didn't, know about myself as much. I didn't know how to mentor. I didn't know how to guide. I didn't know how to cast vision. I didn't know how to assemble a team. I was still learning my product. So it was very, very hard, but for different reasons. But then once I graduated that, then the new challenge, and yes, I mean, pound for pound, scaling to hundreds of locations would be more challenging, but I was more equipped for the journey because I already put in the work there.
You see, I always ask questions like that because it's about the mental step, not literally the physical growing. Because obviously to grow 300 locations is a tremendous amount of work, but it's the confidence, the courage, the steps that are required internally for you to be able to make that. My follow-up, you just spoke into because, you ultimately partnered with Bedros, and he, if anyone is listening to the episode and they don't follow Bedros, I'm going to put his social handles in, because he is an unbelievable human being, but he's also a profoundly successful businessman.
Yes, he is.
And the first post I ever saw of Bedros's was a post of him going to a restaurant, and the meal was $800, and he tipped the waitress $5,000. He took a photograph of it, and when I first saw it, my immediate reaction was like, really, dude? Like, I don't know who you are, but why do you have to show us how much money you're tipping? And then I read the caption, and it was about how we get to show up and make a difference in other people's lives and how hard this woman had worked, and she had shared a story. And I've seen him do that so many times over the course of me following him, which I think has been about 3 years now. And he just shows up that way every single day. He has a bigger vision than most people have for, their life. He has a bigger vision for his. And so when you bought a franchise from him, in my vantage point, you won the lottery, because you're learning from somebody who has got a big dream, a big vision, a big expansion. And I'm a big person who believes in expanders. And so you look to people for something that you want to do, and then you leverage and learn from them. I would love to know, what do you think is the greatest gift or skill that you've learned or gained or benefited from proximity to somebody like Bedros, who is a really big thinker, takes bold risks, and leads with his heart?
Oh, I would think actually just that. I would say his vision, but more importantly, his abundance mindset. I have yet to meet someone that is a bigger thinker or has more of an abundant mindset than him. And I think, factory installed human nature, we've evolved to have a bit of, scarcity thinking. In fact, that has kept us alive, as we evolve as a society. But Bedros has been able to hack that, and he shows up to a situation very abundant, thinking big picture. He's always thinking of the win-win, not, hey, you win, I lose, or vice versa. And when you work with someone like that, then it increases your collaboration, increases your energy, increases the gravity of people that want to work with your organization. So there's so many things I've learned from him since meeting him in 2012. And you're right. I feel like in many ways I hit the jackpot. And also too, not just, buying into the FitBody brand, but I was probably the first dozen franchise partners when the brand was just starting out. So I had the opportunity to have a deeper connection than I would have if I would have, bought in 5 years or 6 years later. And then also believe in coaching and, joined his mastermind. Proximity is power, and learning a lot, and also learning a lot about building relationships. And I've always been a relationship guy, but also to see him navigate, and that's a huge zone of genius for him. So seeing, observing, but going back to the initial point, having that strong, abundant mindset that has carried with me so much in my leadership ability, and my ability to work with people, to bring people in organizations. So that would be it.
So I imagine there's somebody listening to this. I would probably argue many people listening to this right now that are thinking, I want to have a little bit of what you have right now. And so I know that you have franchise opportunities. I know that wasn't the point of our podcast, but I would love for you to speak into, what does it look like to purchase a franchise with you? You're the fastest growing. You're very good at what you do. You've got incredible leadership skills. You're being led by somebody that demonstrates incredible leadership skills. You've got this unbelievable team behind you that is supporting you guys in growing this incredible brand. But, there's somebody out there that's looking to invest in something to have a bigger purpose or a mission, and they're just looking for something where they know they're going to get the structure, the stability, the encouragement, the support, and they're not just putting their money into something and they're going to be left behind. Mm-hmm. I feel very strongly, and again, I'm speaking from my experience of spending time with you, but that you really nurture and develop your people when they come in and it's part of a family environment. Could you speak into a little bit of what does that look like and how could somebody learn more?
Love it. Thank you so much. And that wasn't the point, but I appreciate the opportunity. And just to give a little bit of I guess, context to your point, we're the fastest growing indoor fitness franchise group training on the planet, specifically North America is our target. We're based in Los Angeles. We have 300 locations. Majority of them are in the States. Family is actually the community. We cheer family on 3 after every our sessions. Our program is designed not for high performance athletes, for everyday Mr. and Mrs. Jones who are busy, have kids, aren't looking to shave off a second to make the NFL Combine. They just want to live a healthier life. They come for the results, but they actually stay for the community, the family, and the relationship. So it's a very, very family focused, type of organization. And, we look for people first and foremost who are passionate about people and fitness. More than in fitness, we're in the people business. We're in the emotion business. We're in the coaching and serving business, which is, incredibly important. So that's, more important than someone coming in with a bunch of money that just wants to, buy an ATM machine. I mean, this is a very relationship business, not a transactional business. In fact, we were just at Richardson FitBody BootCamp, which Richardson's a little suburb of Dallas, which we're right here, right now, in visiting one of our most successful franchise partners, Tom and Katie Huff. And Tom is also a franchise business coach, and he is the mayor of Richardson, Texas. I mean, he knows the mayor. He's ingrained in the community. He knows the schools. I mean, he has hundreds of clients, well over a 7-figure earner. But it's a byproduct of him buying into the brand, buying into the community, building strong relationships. And I think that's really what we've been really, really successful at doing. And we're looking for people that have that same type of vision. And yes, it's important. You got to make money. You got the dollars and cents. You need to be able to understand and learn our systems, the sales and marketing. But this is all the teachable skills. What we're looking for the fact of the person, passionate about people, passionate about fitness. Also, the last thing would be growth-minded and then coachable. And at the end of the day, we're in the coaching business, and the clients who get the best results are the ones who follow our program are coachable, and the same thing with our franchise partners. And I would say if you ask me why he, probably took solace in me, there's probably a few reasons I would like to think, but I'm highly coachable. And, I think that's really important. That's why I love coaching. That's why I love our business, and that's why I love leadership.
So I want to share with our audience again, further vision behind the curtain. Your level of communication and your detail is really, really next level. And, I deal obviously with a lot of people and a lot of very successful people. And you're the CEO of a really large organization. You do very well. And most people that achieve a certain level of success or status or structure, the pleasantries and communication fall away. And it's like, hey, can we do this? Can I do that? It's quick, very short. There's no hello, how are you? There's no thank you for your time. And yet you still have such a very clear way of how you show up. Everything that you do, you want to make sure it's being represented really well. You're very considerate about every other person. And what can I do for you? Thank you for this. Here's a reminder. And just the way that you communicated was really impressed upon me what kind of man you are. And I just want to say that if anyone were coming to buy a franchise from you and had the opportunity to communicate with you in any fashion and could feel the sincerity behind how you show up as a man, or just as a human being, like it would just be the easiest yes. And so I think the best decision Bedros has made was hiring you and putting you in that position, because you really do represent him and you represent the brand so beautifully. And for all your franchisees, you represent them amazingly. I would love for you to close out today's episode by talking to your allergic gym self. And if there is somebody right now that's struggling with health or wealth or well-being, because it's all tied, as you had so beautifully said, what advice would you give to them that could support them in taking their health and their well-being a little more seriously?
Oh, well, thank you, first and foremost. And I would say I was one of you. I am you. I went through the first 2 decades of my life running out of money before I used to run out of a month, in a very volatile type of situation because of the reasons that we just chatted earlier. Had self-confidence and self-doubts, just like, anyone listening to this. We're all human. We're all cut from that cloth. But I think it's about, to your point, being the best version of you. And what I realized, during that period of time, and I guess talking to my younger self, I didn't have the know-how, I didn't have the professional skills, but I had a hunger, I had a thirst to be the best person I possibly could be. And maybe it was my childhood, maybe it was the things that happened, but what I really realized is, man, that there's life happens fast. You've got one shot in this globe, like one spin around the sun. And I'm going to live it on passion, on fire, on purpose. And that's my call to action for you. So if you're listening to this, you're listening to this for a reason. You're listening because, number one, you want to grow. You're hungry. You're also listening because probably there's some self-doubt. There's some skill sets that you're working on as well. And that's okay. The guy or the gal that you need to be is something that you can work into. You don't have to be there now, but it is your duty, obligation, responsibility to take that next step forward. And that's what I looked at my life, Rudi, when I first started this journey. I was like, I'm not where I want to be, but I know I have some goodness in me. And I'm going to live with urgency because time is fleeting. And that's been a guiding principle of my life. And, that would be my strong, I guess, recommendation to accept your current reality, but realize you are meant for something better. But you have to take action. You have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. Be humble, take a white belt mentality approach, and realize that you are a student. And when you look at it from that perspective, the world will show you answers. And that would probably be my parting piece of wisdom.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. How can people find you? I'm going to drop obviously your website links, Instagram handles, etc., into the show notes. But how would you best encourage somebody to find you if they want to learn a little bit more about you, follow you, and or learn a little bit more about FitBody BootCamp?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. All the social media handles are real Bryce Henson, not to be confused with fake Bryce Henson. And real Bryce Henson is also my YouTube, which is where my podcast, The CEO Show with Bryce Henson, which you, Rudi, were just in on the episode, which will drop in September. So go check me out on social. Go check out the podcast and go check out our conversation there as well.
I appreciate you so much. And to everybody that is listening to the Empowered Life podcast, we freaking love you so freaking much. And exactly where you are right now is exactly where you need to be. What you just heard was another story that adds to the unfolding of who you get to become. And I hope that you take something really powerful from today's episode and that you learn that life is about a constant evolution. It's a constant change. It's about you becoming the best version of you. And you might have a vision for yourself and that vision could change. And in any moment, you could be led down a path to meet somebody who's going to expand your vision to do something completely different. Bryce has given us that gift today. I hope that you take it, you run with it. Please rate, review, share, subscribe. Send this to anybody who needs to hear what he just had to share with us today. And more than anything, I can't wait to catch you in the next episode of the Empowered Life podcast. I love you guys. Thank you. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.